sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. I think it was out of like San Francisco one time that we tried to blaze across and ultimately spent about 8 hours and used up pretty much all our fuel and had to turn back.
Yeah, that's the other part of being
Lost a
on
day out of
motorcycles. You've
that.
only got so much range with the gas tanks.
Oh yeah, and I mean we get really thrifty and crafty about how we'd carry fuel with, you'd find old jugs here and there, radiator fluid jug or water bottles or whatever, and carry it on your back. And I can remember a few guys having some crashes and having gas pouring down their pants and burning their ass, their legs, and trying to figure out how they're gonna. You just had to suck it up, hop back on. You got a long ways to go. And those, in fact, I had a crash one time out of Scorpion Bay, back before there was a paved road going down there, and going across the tidal flats, and basically just high-sided and crashed probably at about 90 miles an hour, completely unconscious. Woke up and I was looking at Mouse and Tom Mason and Mike Johnson, a few other guys, and I knew I recognized them, but I couldn't tell you who they were. And I was knocked out enough, and they were scared enough they wanted to get me back on the bike. I mean, the only thing we could do is keep riding. We're headed all the way to Loretto, which was, as you know, a pretty long ride from there.
Yeah.
But I can remember riding along, and I was looking over at Tom, and I'm looking out at the ocean, and they had told me that I had crashed in at El Mirage, which is up by Palmdale, Lancaster, here in California. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm, that I need to go home. They told me I need to go home. My wife had made dinner, and I'm looking at the ocean. I'm thinking to myself, man, I cannot believe I haven't bought property out here. This is crazy. Good, property with ocean views out here at El Mirage. This is incredible. Of course, I figured out several hours later that, pretty deep in Baja, and it was not a good place to be with as big of a concussion as I had. And we ended up in Loretto. We made it. All the guys left me, and I was just had to sort of keep myself awake while everybody went out and chased beers and tequila, and
had a good
time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
But I survived, made it.
Yeah, there's no shortage of stories like that where something about getting a group of guys together and taking an adventure head on like that, and then the shenanigans that go along with it. So the one thing we have not touched on yet, we're bumping up on our 30-minute mark here, was the Hot Wheels stuff. And I think you briefly referenced it maybe before we started recording, but you said when I did the loop. And I want to make sure we don't give this away to anybody that doesn't know or hasn't seen it. And I think the best way to tell this story is if you're 50 years, 55 years old or younger, every male at least has to remember at some point the orange tracks that had those tongues that you had to stick between the tracks to then push your Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars on. And basically and then of course the loop-de-loop that we got to try to push our cars through. And you are the one guy who got to do that in real life. Am I saying this right?
Yeah, no, you're right. Actually, it was two of us because Tanner Faust and I.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
We raced into it was a double loop. And, again, this actually circles back to Mouse, where he had a production company, and Hot Wheels and their agency had come to him with the concept of Hot Wheels for real. And that was really all they had. And, hey, what can you do with this? And so got to the creative and really started to think like, hey, I mean, obviously the quintessential Hot Wheels toy was the loop, and it just kind of went from there to create sort of the world's best driver. And we decided to do 3 world record stunts. I believe it was in 16 months. So one was a corkscrew that Brent Fletcher, another Drivers Inc. guy who was down there with us in Nora, did and broke the record on that. And then Tanner actually did the longest jump at the point, which was at the 8,500, 300 and something feet.
That's
but it was
right, yeah.
the toy that actually you would put on your door as a kid and just basically drop the car on the track off your door and then do this big jump. Well, then we ended up doing the loop, which ended up being about 7 stories high, and we put about 6 months, I think, in total time to build it. But it was one of those things where there was no way to really, practice for it. I mean, you couldn't build up to it. It was such a
you
massive,
did it or you didn't, right?
You either did it or you didn't. And, ultimately, obviously we pulled it off, broke a world record there. That was at the X Games in 2012. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, to be involved with something like that. And, there was so many things about stunts like that where you think, and Mouse has gone on to really do some interesting things in the tech world, but that came out of that where it was really, at the end of the day, it was pretty cowboy. And, the numbers didn't, you think you'd have like NASA guys and everybody's figuring this stuff out. Obviously, the numbers worked. We did figure it out. But at the end of the day, it was really gunfighter. You just had to go for it. And the X Games people needed to know. Of course, the build took a little bit longer than we expected. That it was going to work, and they're going to need to move it to downtown Los Angeles. But on that particular day that we needed to test it, we'd had like a drone car, same size car that a drone driver drove through the loop, and actually it was just a massive failure, big crash. He wouldn't have survived it. And now we had to make it happen the next day. And my dad was with me, and he's like, man, I don't know how much they're paying you, but I don't think it's worth it. You got a family and got young kids. And of course I'm looking at him sweating like, this is why I get myself into this thing. But as I looked at it, it was one of those moments of like all the years of experience. I saw where there was a tire mark where the car had hit, and sort of surmised what had gone wrong with it and felt like I could do it, and told the guys, hey, be ready. I'm going to come back here tomorrow to test this thing. That night, I realized that the next day my son was graduating from elementary school, and my daughter was getting out of kindergarten. So it was a pretty big day.
Jeez.
Pretty scary day. And, all night I couldn't sleep thinking, man, if something happens to me and it's going to ruin their school, their education. But, I felt like I could do it. So went out there and we pulled it off. I did the first test and made it, and was fairly confident that, we'd be able to do it together with Tanner going in to test it a week or two later. But funny enough, one of those life stories where I hopped in my car and I was driving home and I was so happy, I was elated, like really elated, broke a world record and survived this, and hundreds of millions of people are going to get to see this at the X Games in a few weeks. And I get a phone call from my wife asking me if I could just hurry up and get home because she had ordered 12 burritos and the kids were having a little party down at the beach for graduation, and she needed me to get there. No questions about, did you survive? How'd it go? Just get the burritos.
Get the burritos.
Yeah, so I put in high gear and hustled to get the burritos. I hung up the phone and I just sort of laughed and realized, like, there's so many things in life that you think are going to be these massive moments and change everything or make you feel different, and they don't necessarily do that. In the case of that Hot Wheels loop, I mean, there's been so many great things that have come out of taking that chance. And, just to kind of end on the fact that, like, one of the big things I've really been a proponent for, and I think Baja speaks to it a lot, and, you've done so much yourself in the same vein, is we need to take risk. I mean, obviously it's calculated risk and there's risk management. It's not about being a jackass and going and doing something stupid, jumping off a roof into the pool that you haven't checked out how far it is. Types of things that you see on
Jackass,
YouTube, and on Jackass and things like that. That's not what it is, but it's really about, like, whatever your personal boundaries are, you need to push them. And I will be honest with anybody that asks. It's like I've never been a massive risk taker. I don't consider myself a risk taker. I wasn't that guy that jumped off the pool. I don't, it wasn't the crazy stuff. I had to build up to things, and yet I've made my entire living and my career on taking some pretty big risk. I'm getting ready to go race Pikes Peak and drive a 1,500 horsepower car up a mountain road with no guardrails and 3,000 foot drop offs. That's something I've had to build up to, and the majority of the people wouldn't be able to do that, but that's my thing.
Yep.
So I think, and that's the same thing with traveling in Baja and getting out of your comfort zone. Like,
risk versus reward. Yeah.
And go find places. Go off the beaten track. And when you're going down and that's, there's still so much of that in Baja. Yeah, they've put in some more paved roads, but there's more than enough dirt roads that also it's just a little turnoff. And you know what? Get in your car and go down that road and see what you find. I mean, there's a lot of life to live and a lot of things to see, and it's just so critical that we do that. I think people are getting a little soft in this country when it comes to things like that, and it's important because that's what America was really built on, was risk takers.
There's no question, man, and it's funny that inevitably the conversations that I have with people on this podcast ultimately go to the place of the bad roads and the good people that you find at the end of those bad roads. And
Yep.
The good roads that ultimately allow the bad people to travel down those good roads, and the desolate places, the turn off the pavement and go explore. There's an untold number surprises and plentiful reward waiting for you when you take that risk and turn off the pavement and go explore in Baja for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cheers to that.
Well, hey, it's been great catching up with you, Greg, and we could go on forever. There's I still have questions about the whole Hot Wheels thing as a guy who grew up playing with those things that we'll have to just have another day. I don't want to go much beyond our 30 minutes here. We do have a question that we try to ask every single person that comes on this podcast. It's a very serious one. I need you to take it serious and
okay.
think before you answer. Here it comes.
All right.
Best taco in Baja, where is it?
Oh, man, and I should know that one. I will, you know what? I'm going to have to probably get back to you on that one, and it's going to have to be on part 2 because I know exactly where it is, and I could drive you there if we were in a car.
Well, so since you don't know where it's at and what it's called, tell us about the taco. What makes it so great?
You know, I think it's probably the happiness of the people that run this particular stand. I mean, you show up there and they are just elated every time you're there. But they have multitudes of sauces to throw on there, and however it is that they do their pastor for me, that's my go-to, and it's definitely one of the best.
So I always ask where the favorite taco is, and then I always share where mine is. It's
I can't wait.
Lalo's Taco at the top of La Rumorosa Grade, and they do tacos al vapor, which is a steamed taco with a shredded beef inside of it, and there's no endorsement, no money being changed hands here. I will tell everybody about Lalo's Tacos. It is my favorite place, and I look for reasons to go that direction when I'm going south, just so that I can go to Lalo's Tacos.
Well, I'm 100% willing to knock mine off the list and go for yours, but that means we'd have to go there to check it out.
We'd have to check them both
make
out.
That happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm up for that.
Right on, Greg. Well, so you've got Pikes Peak coming up here in July, right?
June 30th.
June
30th.
So if people want to follow you, how can we do that? You got Twitter or Facebook, Instagram handles?
Yeah,
what's the way to keep up with you?
Yeah, my Instagram is GT555, and I also have a website, mylifeatspeed.com, which there'll be some stuff there. Pikes Peak International Hill Climb has a great website. They have some live broadcasting during the race as well. That's pretty fantastic. And for all those Instagram people that like tacos, my son's at Show Your Taco Instagram handle is a pretty good one too. So you want to see a lot of good tacos, he's hitting all the best places.
Show Your Taco, I love it.
Yeah.
So real quickly before we hang up, I just caught this. Your GT555. Is the 555 mean anything? Because 5 is my lucky number, and I'm going to tell you why here in a second.
Oh, great. Okay, well, 5's always been a lucky number of mine, and there's my wife and 3 kids and myself make 5. But the funny part of this story is the first time I went to race Pikes Peak, in the motorcycles, you had to have a 3-digit number. And, of course, there's 3 number panels on a motorcycle. And I thought, well, if I do a 3-digit number with different numbers, let's say 127, then I'm going to need an extra pack of 1s, an extra pack of 2s, and an extra pack of 7s in case I crash and you drag the numbers off. If I'm the same number, I just need 1 pack. So basically, for saving, $12, I went with the same number, 555.
And it stuck.
And it turned into the triple nickel, and that particular year that I won, it just obviously stuck because of that. Although this year, I don't know if I'm going to end up being number 555. I think that's the team's prerogative, and I'm not sure what they've picked. I'm hoping number 5, because that has been a lucky one for myself as well. Right. How about yourself?
Well, mine's not nearly as interesting, but I was a huge Star Wars fan when I was a kid, and the very first one back then when Luke Skywalker is flying in his X-Wing fighter to go blow up the Death Star, he was red 5. So
nice.
My favorite color was red, and my favorite number was 5.
I like that.
Right on, man.
Thanks, Ryan. Always a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and anybody that is even remotely interested in Pikes Peak, make sure you check out GT555 and My Life at Speed. And until next time, man, it's been a pleasure, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks, buddy. All the best.
Okay, talk to you later.
This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com